Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Richard's Podcast Land. And today we'll be having Jamison Boaz as going to be our guest for the interview. But before we get started, how are you doing today so far?
I'm doing great today. Just finished some music cues for a video game that's coming out. I think later next year, maybe actually later this year, I think. And it's a beautiful rainy day in Los Angeles, and I have hot tea, and you can't beat that.
Yeah, well, that's really great to hear. It's such an honor to have you here in my podcast series. I really
Honor's
appreciate
mine.
it.
Thank you so much. The honor's mine.
Yep, I have a lot of questions to ask you about your career and some stuffs. Now, further than ado, let's get started, shall we? So, here's my first question. What's it like to become a voice actor in many video games that you voiced at?
Um, for me, it was an accident. um, yeah, before I ever became a voice actor, before I was ever even in a voiceover booth, I was an engineer. Because of my music background. I know how to run all the software and microphones and all that stuff. And I ended up working at a music studio who also did dubbing. So the first time I sat in on a dubbing session was Sengoku Basara 3 on the Nintendo Wii. And that's where I met a lot of the voice actors that I've been lucky enough to be in some of the same projects with to this day. Um, I started as an editor and engineering, and then one day during the recording of Resident Evil 6, they needed like we need like an extra soldier. We need like soldier number 58. Man, let's get Jamison in there. He likes to yell and stuff. Because I have a
Yep.
background as a singer and a kind of a metal musician and stuff. So they thought it'd be fun to get me in and just let me have fun, and grenade over here, over there, and I loved it. I loved it so much. It was uh 100 times harder than I thought it was gonna be. Like for some reason, when they were like, "Hey, you want to come in here?" I was like, "Yeah, dude." I've recorded, as a singer so many times. How hard can another booth be? How hard can talking be? It's a whole nother thing. So, I
Yeah.
went in there and I kind of like fumbled my way through it, but it got me like inspired to do more. And then I did. I took every chance I got to get back in the booth. There were a couple of real stinkers in the beginning, and then over the years, I just kept getting gigs and I kept, seeking out more booths, and I think I'm doing okay right about now.
Well, that's really great to hear. I'm glad to hear your whole experience so far, which your answer leads me to the most important question I need to ask. Like, how did you became interested in acting or audio department, and what inspired you to pursue them as your career? Since where did this all started?
I think that probably seeking work in music studios and accidentally finding something that I also really enjoy. I mean, that's one of the great parts of life is when you're like, this is what I like and this is what I do, and you just do that. But then like all of a sudden something out of nowhere just presents itself and you're like, oh wow, like it's such a gift to find something else that you can be passionate about, so you can have more things to be passionate about, and it enriches your life, you know what I mean? So I think that just the accident of finding myself in a voiceover session and meeting like, oh, here's Richard Epcar. He's the guy that played Bato and Ghost in the Shell, and I'm like, oh, really? Because I didn't know who a lot of those people were, but then people started name dropping their characters, and I was like, no shit. And they knew I was a Devil May Cry fan and a Street Fighter fan. And then Ruben Langdon came in and they were like, that's Dante and Ken Masters. And I was like, no shit, I gotta go meet this guy. And I think it was just, the passion, that finding something to be so interested in, and to be around people that I really like. A lot of people in this industry are great people, so it's just good to be around them.
Yeah, well, that's really great to hear. I mean, Richard Epcar and a lot of the voice actors you work with were amazing and one of the most true legends everyone has ever appreciated. Like, I did remember that I saw Richard Epcar at the Anime Festival Orlando, but unfortunately, I never got a chance to meet him since my parents said I could only meet like 3 or 4, and I didn't want to disturb them, so I had to leave. But hopefully, I could get to meet them soon someday, if there's a
Yeah,
chance.
Rich is a cool guy, man, for sure.
Yeah.
I remember like one time, most of the actors knew me as like the guy that they come in for their session, and I'm the guy that comes in and says, "How are you doing today? Do you need any tea? Do you need any coffee? Let's get your microphone set up. Can you see the script? Is everything good to go?" And then I go and I sit and I record them, and the director takes over from that point. But then it was Resident Evil Village when I got the gig to play the big hammer wielding giant werewolf guy. When I got that gig, which was at Formosa in Burbank, I went in and I was signing up my paperwork before the session, and I had a cup of coffee, and then Richard walks in, and it was kind of like this. Are you recording? And I was like, "Oh, no, I'm acting today," and he was like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, wow, good for you. Like last time I saw you, you were like, we're running Pro Tools, and now you hear his talent. Like, wow, okay, cool." It's like it was a cool feeling. It was like, nah, Richard, today I'm talent.
Yeah, well, that's really great to hear. I mean, Resident Evil Village, I think it's actually made by the same company that made Grand Theft Auto and Bully, which is made by Rockstar, which is a very good video game, actually.
I think
Studio,
it's
I meant.
Capcom actually.
Oh,
I think it's
hmm,
I think all the Resident Evil games are Capcom.
hmm. Oh,
Yeah, so Rockstar would be like GTA and Red Dead Redemption, which I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2 right now.
yeah.
So that's really, really fun. Actually, it's funny. I'm a mountain biker, and we went up to a bike park in Big Bear, California, and it's a lift assisted park. So you put your bike up on a lift and you sit on it, like like you'd think about like people going skiing, and you sit on the lift, and the lift rides you up to the top, and then you ride down. And I was by myself that day, and I had room, and there was another guy with his bike behind me by himself, and I was like, "Does anybody else want to ride so we're not like taking up too much time, too many lifts with one person on?" And this guy was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll ride with you." So he came and sat down, and sure enough, he works for Rockstar. So we rode all the way to the top of the mountain talking about all the video games that we've worked on and all that stuff. We've been friends since. So yeah, it's cool how like the different worlds you can kind of be like, "Hey, I work for Capcom, or I work for Rockstar, I work for whatever Blizzard," and then it's like, "Oh yeah, then we got war stories."
Yeah, awesome. I mean, mountain biking that you mentioned, I knew I wanted to try it out, but when I watched some of the videos of the fails and accidents, I found out that I wouldn't be really that great at it. But honestly, I should
It's tough.
take, but taking lessons and everything is most important if you want to improve first. That's what they should take. Yeah.
Start with what like if you're if you want to get into riding bikes, start with just riding around like, easy places, just riding the bike, just turning the bike, stuff like that. Like I'm kind of at the point where it's like we're hitting jumps and stuff now. And I've hit some pretty big jumps in the past year. Um, but when the the size of the jumps and the size of the features gets bigger, the risk is higher. So I've had some pretty gnarly injuries, in the past few years since things started to kind of get a little crazy. I actually dislocated my shoulder a week ago, on a trail that I'd ridden a million times before, but that one day, one mistake, and I'm on the ground, and my shoulder's like not where it's supposed to be. I had to find a tree and push it back in, so there's a risk, and if you got to show back up to work on Monday, you got to assess those risks. But as far as the extreme sports in the world, like it's probably one of the safest ones, but it's still an extreme sport if you ride like downhill and stuff like that. But bikes are fun
Yeah.
generally.
I mean, I should actually put that in my book someday when I don't do work. If I wanted to do like sports and stuff like mountain biking, because you're actually one of the only people that recommends about mountain biking, which I kind of like it because I really wanted to try it out which is similar to like motorcycling, but a little different. Yeah.
Yeah. I a lot of my friends who are like road cyclists, and um they rode like street bikes and stuff on the road on the street bikes. Um, the way that people drive, that can be a big risk. It's like when I crashed last week and dislocated my shoulder, um, it was my own fault. It was like, well, I was out there ripping at like 20, 28 miles an hour and I screwed up on a berm and I ate dirt and I got hurt. And it's like, it's my own fault. I have to deal with it. And just the thing, when you're out on the street though, around a lot of cars, and so especially like in busy places like Los Angeles or on the freeway, someone could just not be paying attention and merge, and then like you're not in a car, you're falling down, you're going to be on the concrete, and a lot of guys, stop riding street bikes and stuff. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, the injuries I've had on a mountain bike have not stopped me from wanting to ride bikes. Like it makes my life better to ride bikes. It's what I accept. But it's the same thing with street bikes. You have to love it so much to take that risk. Deborah Wilson. She's a big street biker. She loves riding her bike. And it's like she knows the risk of it, but it's something she's like, I can't live without doing it. I love it too much. I love the ride too much to not do this. And you can tell.
Yeah, well, I'm really happy to hear your whole experience about motorbiking. Hopefully, someday I could get to be one just like you when I grow up. Yeah,
It'll keep you healthier, that's for sure.
yep, got it. Okay, next question. How's it like being the voice of Red Skull, the death metal version from Netflix anime Agretsuko?
Wow. I was aware of Agretzko before the show. I think it was like a web series at one point before the Netflix show came around. I think somebody showed it to me knowing that I was like kind of a rock metal musician generally. And I thought it was hilarious. Like the first time I saw it, which was all in Japanese. It was all the original, you know. Um, so it wasn't like a dubbed thing at all. And it was just like a web show. And I didn't know what it was when I got hired for it. Patrick Seitz just hit me up and was like, "Hey, dude, so we've got like this metal voice screaming character, and I've been trying to think about who we could get to do it." And I wasn't really on people's radar as an actor at that time, so I wasn't really considered a lot for things like that at the time. Um, and then all of a sudden it just hit him. He was like, "Oh my god, Jamison. Jamison does this all the time. Let's get him in and have him do a bunch of screaming and stuff." And in the process, they were like, let's throw him some background characters and incidentals. So they kind of, I feel like they were maybe kind of like testing me out a little bit to see like what else I could do, but knowing that I could do the one thing. And it just kind of grew from there. So like every season, I got more, characters with more screen time. I think the last, was it the last season where I had a scene. I was Ben Diskin's high school buddy, like a punk rock pig, like a boar. And so I had to actually like, voice with Ben Diskin, and I'm like, no pressure. But like the Agretzko thing has been great because like, there's like young people who it's their comfort show. I've made friends through Agretzko, people who have approached me saying like, I really love that show. It was, it maybe it helped them out, maybe it helped them through a tumultuous period of their life, or help them make a decision or something like that. Just give them something to feel like they could relate to. And and that's the show itself, not me. But I think that like because I'm the punchline of the main character, people kind of associate like, oh, you're a Gretzko, like you and Erica Mendez is Retzko. And it's just been so cool. It's been so cool to hear those stories and to meet people. We did a signing at Sanrio, um and the Sanrio store in Little Tokyo, and there are people who just got tattoos, of the characters coming up to us wanting us to sign their prints and stuff like that. And some of those people are still my friends. Actually, one of them is one of my favorite YouTubers who came to the signing, and when he told me who he was, I was like, dude, I've been watching your channel this whole time. Like it's so cool, man. Like it's been nothing but such a great experience, and all I have to say at this point is I hope we get more. I really, really hope we get more. The whole cast feels the same way. We all want to get back to maybe doing some Retzko stuff. I think Caitlin and Ben and I were all sitting at a signing that we did for Fire Emblem, and we're talking about like we started kind of like talking about like, oh, what if they did a movie? What would it be about? Like would they get married? Like would there be like the wedding where both families show up and all that stuff? And I was like, oh, I hope that happens because I could get an opportunity to scream at two families at a wedding at the same time. Let this happen. Netflix, take notes.
Well, that's really awesome. I mean, Agresco is one of the most best Netflix anime series. Like all the four seasons I watched were fantastic. Oh, and speaking of that, did you hear that there are the Resco Funko Pops that you can sign for all of your fans?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I keep one here as a reminder of the fun that we had so far. Um, yeah, I'm so new to a lot of this stuff. Like I have just started kind of doing like autograph signings and things like that. And I don't have like a PO box or anything for people to send me things or mail me anything. So I'm hoping that maybe in the next like year, maybe a year or two, that I'll be actually maybe coming to conventions, especially now that we've got Fire Emblem Engage, and that character was such a hit with people. Now I've got more than one thing for people to be excited about, maybe talking to me about. Um, it's a really good possibility. I would love to sign everybody's stuff for them. So maybe I can start doing conventions and yeah, go meet some people and sign their Funkos and all that stuff, man. I'm totally down.
Yeah, hopefully someday you could get to come here in Florida where I live because Florida has Walt Disney World that you should experience because it's one of the most magical places that everyone has ever experienced. Trust
Mm-hmm.
me.
Yep. Oh, I lived in Florida for 2 years.
Oh.
Yeah, I went to school in Florida. I was born in Virginia, grew up in North Carolina, and then went to school in Orlando. I lived right by Goldenrod outside of the Full Sail University where I learned how to push buttons on recording equipment. And then came out to LA and didn't do any of that stuff. Just became a voice actor.
Well, that's really awesome. Because Full Sail University, I actually remember that my friends and I went to go there for our school trip. And trust me, hopefully someday I could get to go there once I graduate from college, since I am studying theater. Yeah.
Studying theater, like, I wish I would have studied more theater. I wish I would have studied more theater, and I wish that I would have studied more like music theory, like music composition, rather than I went to Full Sail to like, oh, this is how you run the software. This is how you run Pro Tools. This is a console. And all that experience was good stuff, but I feel like I didn't. I'd already put out albums. I'd already recorded bands, my own bands and my own music and stuff before I went to school there. And I was like, I already know how to do most of this stuff. I know what a compressor is. I know how an EQ works. I know all this stuff. Like I honestly slept through a lot of my classes because it was like, oh, I know this, and then I'd wake up and take a test and ace it or at least pass it well, and then I would just go about my business elsewhere. But um, you know, as an actor today, And also, I've been working a lot with different video game companies and composing music for video games, and just did a bunch of work for Blizzard for Diablo and World of Warcraft. And the challenges that I'm running into today are kind of showing me like, oh man, I wish I would have, taken. I wish that I had theater background. I wish that I had, uh, you know, more acting chops. Like everything that I know today is like trial by fire. Like, get a job, you have to do the job, figure it out.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I wish that I had that experience to build off of, rather than, constantly kind of being like playing catch up. But I'm doing
Yeah.
all right. I'm doing pretty good. Like no, there's no fires yet.
Yep. No fires around here, honestly. But yeah. Say, speaking of fire, how is it like being the voice of Pan and Astrum from Fire Emblem Heroes?
And an Astrum. Um, I didn't know that I'm sorry, I didn't know that Astrum was like kind of like one of the OG guys in the first original game. I was like, holy crap. So when I was in the booth and we did the his tagline, because I'm just seeing a script. It's just basic, direction. Like, this is what's going on, this is how it happens, and then you just read the words as the character. And we got through the one that was like, heads will roll, and I was like, yeah, it's just a guy saying heads will roll because like he's gonna chop your head off in battle, whatever. I didn't know that it was like more of a tagline. So then when people started posting like on my social medias and stuff, and they started responding like heads will roll, I was like, oh, that must be more of a thing for him than I realized in the beginning, because like, Nintendo, the old NES games, that was a very long time ago. And I don't remember all the details of those old games, as much. Um, but being able to voice him, like, I really love him. And then Pent is more of he's a little more like refined, and I really like the difference of the two characters. And he was really fun to do for the the bridal DLC, because it was just like one of the first times that I had to just be like exquisitely pleasant all the time. So up to that point, I was like soldiers in Resident Evil and zombies in Resident Evil, and all these different kind of like violent game characters and unhinged characters, and kind of these guys, and then it's like I have to be like, pleased to be a groom. It was just such a huge juxtaposition to what I was used to. I was like, I have to be like really, really nice.
Yeah. I'm so happy you had a good opportunity to be in the Fire Emblem universe. Speaking of that, there's another question that is connected to mine. How is it like being the voice of Gris and Gregory from Fire Emblem Engage?
I love Gregory and Gris. I love them. I think there's plenty of people out there that do too. It's like when I started to notice um a lot of Fire Emblem Engage fans popping up after the game came out on Twitter, uh, changing their profile pictures to Gregory or Gris, and getting tagged in a lot of fan art and stuff like that. Like, it was really apparent that like I think that at that point it was like, yeah, I felt like I really did my job. I think that was the first time that I was like, I really, really did my job that time. I think because it's cool to have characters in your back pocket that just yell and scream, or monsters and all that stuff, but to have characters that have a little screen time with everybody else in the game, and um to be able to actually, once the game came out, be able to actually like kind of gauge myself against like, oh, here's my scene with Matt Mercer, and here's my scene with Patrick Seitz, and Wendy Lee, and all these people who are in the show, and or in the game, kind of gave me like a little bit of perspective of like, this is how I sound. This is kind of like among the characters and the kind of vibes that I can do. Um, but when I got hired as Gris. There was no Gregory.
Hmm.
No one knew anything about any Gregory or any other stuff coming up. So it was like the weeks of coming in and refining the character, dialing in the character and stuff. I don't act as much or as the big timers, but so it there were times when it was like 2 weeks would go by and I would kind of forget, like, did he talk more like this? Or did he talk more like this? Like, where's the range? Where do we go? It's like, when did I tap certain things? And then it's like, oh, we'd find him. And then once we'd find him, I'd lock. And then we would get it all done. But then when we did the final scene, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but when we got to the final grist scene that we recorded, um, I wasn't really sure like what would be after that. And when they called us in to do Gregory, I was like, and I don't think I was alone in this. I think the director also was a little bit like, can he do this? Like, we're not really sure. Like, we haven't worked with him enough to know like what his range is, because they're like, here's a character that looks like this and sounds like this. Now here's a character that looks exactly the same, but his personality is the exact opposite. And it was a challenge I felt like I'd never considered before. Usually it's like you pick a character and you do what they do and then you move on to a different character and you like live in that character for a while. But it was weird because I see the same face as that guy, you know. But then he's like, "Oh no, sorry. I just really want to be friends with everybody, like, I wouldn't ever want to hurt anyone." And to have that, like, that reverence for every character, to have that sense of like, I understand that I look like the guy that did horrible things to you, but that's not who I am anymore. And it's okay if you don't like me, but I just want you to know that I am your friend and I will be here as long as things don't get too crazy, and then I might have to run away.
Well, that's really awesome. So happy that you got the voice and Fire Emblem engaged. Which, speaking of it, I do remember some of the voice actors from Dallas, Texas, and Houston got a good opportunity to be in that game, honestly, since they have their own home studio and an internet connection as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Have you ever been to Comic Cons where you watched the Q&A show with the voice actors of how they got their career in voiceover?
I've only been to one Comic Con ever,
Oh.
and it was Nandescon in Denver, Colorado.
Hmm.
Because I'd met a lot of the voice actors that I know today. Like, I met them when I was in Los Angeles, but there was a while where I moved to Denver for a couple of years. And when a couple of them reached out to me saying, "Hey, like, we're gonna be in Denver at this non-descon thing," so I drove out there and I went in and I just really spent time just kind of hanging out and catching up, seeing everybody. And then I kind of left. So it was more of a personal visit kind of thing. So I didn't get into the panels. Um, it's just I've talked to so many people in this business about like how they got started and stuff, and that's kind of the cool thing. It's like, you know, to be a voice actor starting out and kind of, like I said, accidentally kind of getting into this. But because of, the job that I did in the past, uh, I know enough people that I can, call someone up or text somebody and say, "Hey, like, what would you do about this or that?" Or like, "How did you figure this out?" And just, to be able to kind of have access, in that way. It's like I do have kind of my guidance it has been personal. But the times that I've watched like interviews with certain people, I've watched some of the interviews. I love watching the interviews with like like Dan Southworth and Johnny Young Bosch and stuff like that on panels because like those guys like Dan and Johnny and Ruben like especially when they do like a Devil May Cry panel or something like those personalities of those characters are just kind of like Dante Virgil and Nero. They're all kind of just embellished versions of the actual people. So like they're kind of like that quippy, with each other, in real life. They're buddies, So it's I've watched a lot of those panels with those guys and it's really fun. But you hear these stories and stuff and it's like, oh yeah, I need to you learn from just listening to these stories that these guys will tell you.
But yeah, I mean, Comic Con is one of the most safest and most best events that everyone has ever experienced. Like, trust me, if they ever ask you questions about how you got a career in voiceover, the tip is that you have to go bring your book bag, get your notepad of all the tips that you want to give out for all your fans the next time you go to a Q&A show, if
Mm-hmm.
there's a chance. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, this is all pretty new for me, so we'll see what happens. I mean, I just hope that I would love to get out and travel and meet more people and you know, I kind of feel like just because like my story getting started as a voice actor is a little bit unique um in the sense that I worked on the different side, you know, I'm hoping that maybe, someone would hear that and if they're going for, being a voice actor, like hopefully that helps, just to hear, the different ways that you can learn, how to do this, you know, different
Yeah,
ways to get into the industry, different ways to learn the craft, like it's I've taken some online classes and stuff too. I've taken classes from people that I know. Because I respect them and I know who to go to learn certain things. So, if there was anything that I could tell anybody to help them learn, like as I'm still learning too, like I would love that opportunity.
yeah, you got a good point. Remember, voiceover classes is always second after they study acting because acting always comes first.
Always comes first. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, final question before we end this episode. What are your dream roles that you would like to voice in the future? It could be like Marvel, Star Wars, Demon Slayer, or something.
Hmm. If I could voice anybody, um, I gotta say I'm very, very lucky to say that I have voiced someone from each of my favorite franchises already, even if it was like small, but um I'm a big Berserk fan. I've just got a bunch of new Berserk tattoos,
Awesome.
you know. And I got to be in Berserk. Stephanie Shea and Michael Centurna Kloss were just like, he loves Berserk so much and like he can read okay, so let's throw him some, background characters and Walla and stuff. And then like, you know, as time goes by and we get these kind of little sessions going on. I think one of the last times I worked with Stephanie, she was like, "Wow, you've been working more. Like you sound good." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." But the last thing I did for Berserk was the new Memorial Edition, which is basically like a recut of the three movies that were on Netflix, the Golden Age arc movies, and then they just cut them up more episodically and added some scenes, and we had to redub the whole thing. Um, but one thing that they had me do that I didn't do before, because mostly before soldiers, background soldiers, Captain, that kind of stuff, Commander Casca, you know, and some of the demon stuff at the end, like the eclipse scene, like there was a lot of demon voices and stuff that I did. But for the new version, they had me actually dub an actual human voice because I don't think it actually had a human voice at all in it. Uh, but in the new version, when the red Bailet, when it opens up, uh, it screams, and it was like a lot of sound effects. But I actually did like the kind of thing with it. And it was really cool. It was really cool to see like, oh, I'm the voice of the Bailiff. Ooh, it was like one sound, but that was it. That was it for me. I was like, holy shit, I'm the voice of the Red Bailiff. Like that's so crazy to me because it's my favorite thing in the world. Devil May Cry is one of my favorite things in the world. I got to be a boss character and the ranking system when you're playing the game. Um, and then like being in multiple Resident Evil games. Like I always play like the first game I ever played on a PlayStation 1 when it first came out. My dad and I went to a Blockbuster Video that had PlayStations for rent. We rented a PlayStation for like the whole weekend, and we got Resident Evil, the original, and Battle Arena Toshinden, which I don't know if anyone even remembers that game at this point. But Resident Evil being such a huge game changer for horror games and video gaming in general, and then to have like a history with Capcom later on down the road, has been such a huge blessing. I think if I look forward into the future and I say if I want to voice a character, I want to do a new character kind of in the way that we did Gris and Gregory, to do a new character, not knowing walking in if it's going to be like a big character for the franchise or the fans are going to love them. I think that's the best part is you walk into a new character, figure out what they sound like, figure out who they are, and then get to work on them, get to kind of live in their shoes for a while. And then when it comes out and people start to play the game or watch the show and they get to know the character, and then you find out like, wow, people really like that character. I think that's the character I want. I don't really think, you know, I don't think I would be Guts in Berserk. I would love to be, but I don't think that's for me. I don't think that would be, I don't think my voice would suit being Guts. But but I would like to be a character, the right character for me to do that would maybe be someone who lasts for a little longer. A lot of my guys die.
Well, that's really great to hear. Hopefully, you could get those roles in the future. If God notices, he know who to choose. But we'll see.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. I mean, it's a there is a lot of finger crossing in this business for a lot of people. I've decided that this is the year that I do the headshots and get representation through some talent agency, and I've got a couple in mind to shoot for. And if I keep working, then I will keep trying to do things that make people happy. Try to create characters that people can relate to, and just keep doing the thing, and be available to people too. I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and I'm pretty open about whatever. So, if anyone ever has any questions, wants to talk to me about this stuff, I try to be really available. So, people have been really kind to me, and it's helped me out a lot. So I'd like to return that favor to anybody who maybe has a question.
All right, that is it for this episode. Thank you so much, Jamison, for joining here in my podcast series. I really appreciate it.
And thank you for having me, man. It's been a pleasure.
You're very much welcome. And remember, stay awesome, stay positive, and stay happy for all of your fans and co stars. All right. And wishing you luck on your music career and your motorbiking. All right. Take care,
Thank you so
bro.
much.
You too. Bye
Thank you, you
bye.
too. Thanks everybody out there. Have a good one.
Yep. You too. Bye bye.